What is a step change? A step change is a complete, jump 15 feet to the right that isn't dependent upon the last thing you did. So, for example, why do you have to have a lemonade stand before you can have the $100 million lemonade business? Like, who made these rules?
Right,
But incrementalism is to always assume that life unfolds like layers of sedimentary rock. It's so organized. We only see sedimentary rock when we look backwards millions of years. It looks very tidy. But along the way, that's not how it goes, right? So I always have a bias towards step changes, because I could always redound or revert to the idea of incrementalism. But if I never once considered a step change, I never have another opportunity, right? And corporate hierarchies want us to submit to incrementalism because it's easier to organize people in these bands, right? And so, not to sound like Oliver Stone, but to sound like Oliver Stone, there is a vast non-right-wing conspiracy in the universe that's attempting to get you to submit to this hierarchy.
Yeah, it's called the status quo.
Exactly, the status quo. It's called efficiency. I get it, And then the second part about familiarity, you just have to accept that principle that it is true, and it does require a degree of power and leverage to get what you want in this world, and a willingness to bet on yourself. We're also drawn in a magnetic, animalistic way to those people who have an undue amount of belief in themselves. At first we dismiss it, then we resent it because we don't possess it, and then we want to be around it.
Yeah, I love that. I will just underscore another lesson too, which is, and I'm sure you can relate, when you're out there moving your bones towards the career or the dream job or whatever that you want to pursue, I couldn't co-sign that more. I think along the way too, what I've learned is that figuring out what you don't like, you see it in the shop window and you're like, that's going to look great on me. And you get in there and the coat's like a little tight under the arm and you realize the color's not right or the fabric's itchy and you're like, well, I thought so, but try it on, it's not so great. I think it's perfectly okay to, try it on for a season, and if it doesn't fit, take it off, try something else on. It's a process of elimination. I think a lot of people get stuck in this idea that, they've just got to make this beeline for the there, and then when they don't find it, there's disappointment and they think they're failing, but process of elimination is okay.
I love this point. We don't, for whatever reason, this point is not spoken of a lot. I think it's Einstein or Edison who had the quote, basically, I haven't failed, 10,000 times. I found 10,000 ways that will work, or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's Edison.
Yeah, Edison, right. That is true in life. And I speak about it in Burn the Boats, too, that I'm perfectly comfortable taking the train to the second to the last stop and saying, no, I want to get off. I'll give you an example. I went to law school for 4 years a night. At one point, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. But by the time I got around to being a lawyer, I was 26. I was already making more money working for the government, which is hard to do, with a huge job than I would be as a lawyer. And again, money is not the only proxy. So when I remember I sat down with the partner, I said, I just have a question. When I outwork my colleagues, assuming that's the goal, right? You want me to be the best. How long will it take for you to recognize that fact? Well, young man, here at Skadden was the Skadden Arps, one of the best firms in the country. No disrespect to them, but the answer was 11 years to make partner. But if you're a superstar, you might be able to make it in 7 or 8. And I was like, 7 or 8 years. It felt like suddenly I was, I was working in the USSR. That those words that I had to wait any amount of time, right? Yeah. To me were horrifying. So my only point to this story, not only did I not become a lawyer, and did I give back the advance, I never took the bar. Because I never wanted that thought to be in my head that I might have a plan B of being a lawyer. And I love the fact that I went to law school. I can manage lawyers all day long. There are no wasted experiences. That's the point of the story.
Yes.
And we have a lot of pressure on ourselves to think, one, that this was a waste of time. But two, probably more insidious, everyone's going to judge me for being flaky.
Yes.
That's the thing I think holds a lot of mom and dad or somebody, you're always doing something new.
Well, back to fallacy. So that, I think they call it the sunk cost fallacy.
Right. The sunk cost, my favorite.
You just think, oh, I've already spent all that time in school and I've spent all this money. I might as well just stick with it and be miserable for the rest of my life.
Right. And the best way for those out there who find themselves stuck in the sunk fallacy decision matrix, which is insidious and will ruin your life, the way to fix it immediately is to instead substitute sunk cost with opportunity cost. To be like, wait, if I continue doing this, what am I giving up? And then when you do that, your mind sharpens very quickly. It's not about what already happened. It's about what happens next and how do I get there a lot faster. So fortunately, I'm always wired to be like, I don't really care what I'm walking away from.
So let's stay right on that for a minute, that sort of emotional intelligence, that emotional decision, because burning the boats is scary, Matt. I mean,
Sort of. No,
well,
I'm just kidding. No, it is. It is. We have to acknowledge it's not a safe space. Even the cover is a little scary.
Yeah.
It's on fire.
Yeah. Well, we were talking off camera I pointed here because I have calluses now because I've been to the gym and I've been doing those pull-ups and getting the reps in. Gary Vaynerchuk is famous for telling me, Brian, you can't fake being good at push-ups. You're either good at them or you're not. So get to it, right?
Yeah.
And so when I became a founder, had my little startup for the first time, I decided to start right at the beginning of the Great Recession, 2008, and it kicked my ass. And it was scary at the time, but like I had inadvertently burnt the boats, like I had no other choice, and I realized my only way through was forward. I have since been to hell and back several times, emotionally with the, building the business and all the things. And so it's less scary now, but I still remember that feeling very well. And I think for me, I'll put some more context to let you weigh in on this. For me, and if I'm really being honest, the guilt I feel today is still putting my family through that. So we didn't sign up for that. I said, hey, I've got this great idea. My wife endorsed it. She gave me, she's like, I believe in you. Let's go for it together. And we've always thought as a couple, we're going to fail together or we're going to succeed together. So, if we're unanimous, let's go. And we've always made decisions like that, unanimously. And so we decided to go, but it was, it was rough, ups and downs and, 08, 09, 10, 11. About 12, we started kind of getting back to some regularity, but it was tough. So again, with that sort of framing, how do you make what seems so scary doable? How do you do it?
Okay, a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
First, I wrote this book, Burn the Boats, not for the Kevin O'Learys, my colleague on Shark Tank, who don't need to read this book. They're completely self-possessed.
Yeah.
Or I didn't write this book for narcissists out there or whatever. I wrote it for, not him, I love Kevin, but just generally speaking. I wrote it for the people.
It's ironic that you said Kevin and narcissist.
Yeah,
in the
no,
same
but it's
sentence,
not.
yeah.
Oh, Kevin's a friend, but you get my point. Fully and immunized from judgment.
Yeah, I know Kevin quite well.
Right. I love Kevin. And I wrote this book for the people who, if you went on a train station, there's a study, and you asked everybody on the platform, do you have a plan B? 48% of the people would say yes, right? I actually think that's a lie. I think that number's a lot higher. But I wrote this book for those people who are risk adverse, who are worried about what would happen if I do go all in, because the phrase is a little bit of a misnomer. The idea of going all in on plan A, when people hear that and they hear burn the boats, they think that means that you can't contemplate risk mitigation. And what I'm saying is, if the version of you Brian, back in the day had, when you were about to make that big move, start your company, whatever, and you had done the following. Okay, what's the worst that could happen if it doesn't work out, right? Let me quantify, let me catastrophize at the beginning of the journey before I start.
Right.
Okay, I've now identified it. 2, what would I do if that were to materialize? In your case, it would have been like, well, I have so many skills, I'll go back and create a job. It might have been back to the industry you left. It might have been doing what we're doing right now. I don't know what your risk mitigation would be at the beginning of your journey. 3, what's the probability that this is not going to work out? Let me handicap it, whatever. Usually relatively low that the worst case scenario is going to happen. 4, what would I not do to achieve plan A? And the answer to that should be walk on coals, eat glass, like do whatever. Every big thing I've ever done, go on Shark Tank or teach at Harvard Business School, when I went through this decision matrix with risk and fear, the answer to that last question was like, I would do anything to perform well at Harvard Business School and leave a legacy with these students. I would do anything to do well on Shark Tank and get on that set, right? And so what I'm trying to do with this book is say, plan A, going all in, contemplates, right, that you've already processed the risk. And here's why that matters. When you are taking on incoming on plan A, right, it's the subtle, like, it's a friend who makes the comment that makes you feel like you're being ridiculous. It's the voice in your head that says you're an imposter. Right. It's these small subtle things that make you then go and try to grab onto a plan B. So in my book, I start with the premise that going back to the beginning of time, when we are outnumbered 100 to 1, all these military generals, every culture, they do the exact same thing. They eliminate their retreat and they actually destroy their provisions, right? But we don't need to be at war to harness that decision making. What we need to do is to eliminate those things at the beginning of the journey that are going to make you hesitate. So why is that important? There's a study in 2014 out of Wharton that wanted to analyze not what happens when you have a plan B. What happens when you're allowed just to think about a plan B? Merely contemplate it. What happens to your one, likelihood of success, and two, your desire? What they found, just thinking about it, yes, just thinking about plan B dramatically lesses the probability you're going to achieve. But what I found more interesting, it eliminated your motivation. You didn't care about plan A anymore.
I mean, we were just sitting back, you know, chopping it up, reminiscing about the good old days and all that. You know, tracking my roots, where I came from.